people can get away with this. Like, how could you literally fake your own death? Like, how? Let's just find out, because I really don't know how you could do that. Um, I mean, I heard like celebrities and stuff doing that, but you would think because they got money, they got resources, connections. I don't know, but a random sex offender, like, let's see what this is about, because, yeah, I'm thoroughly confused and interested at the same time.
Okay, folks, this one is wild. A sex offender fakes his own death to hide from us.
Yes, you heard it right. A sex offender faked his own death so he didn't have to register as a sex offender. It's unbelievable. The sheriff and Chris Hansen are here to break it all down. Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. This is one of those stories where I read the headline and I think to myself, what? It's crazy. Who does that? Well, Benjamin Hollins is the guy who does that. Hollins is a 50-year-old man who was convicted of sex crimes in California more than 20 years ago. By 2018, the sheriff in Pinal County, Arizona, says Hollins had moved to Arizona City, Arizona, and didn't register as a sex offender, which he was required to do. Then Hollins reoffended, and get this, he was actually working as a behavioral counselor. The sheriff says Hollins kidnapped and tried to molest a 16-year-old client. Unbelievable. But at the same time,
how did you get hired in the first place? Like, did you fake your own social security name, all of that?
Same time, it's completely believable. Hollins pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a year of probation and was required to register as a sex offender, but he didn't. Again, instead, he decided to ask a woman to help him fake his own death. Last October, the sheriff says a woman helped him file a fake police report, saying that he jumped off of a bridge. His body, of course, was never found because he wasn't dead. Hollins is now in custody. Chandler police in Arizona.
It's that easy. You just file a police report and then there's definitely a lot of loopholes in the system.
Tracked him down, and there was some video captured of him in the back of the cruiser. He didn't like that too much. Now, someone who knows a thing or two about sex offenders is Chris Hansen of the True Blue Network. Here's Chris's take on all of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please
You
stay
would
tuned as
put
we
an
attempt to
ad
commune
on, man.
with the devil.
Anjanette, we've been doing predator investigations for more than 20 years now, and I've seen a lot of crazy things. I've seen a lot of convicted sex offenders try to avoid detection, try to get off the sex registry, appeal to the courts, all kinds of things. But I've never seen someone who has faked their own death to avoid having to register as a sex offender.
That's doing
and it
too
speaks
much.
to how valuable the sex offender registry is in terms of keeping track of people who've exploited children and committed other sexual offenses. People worry about having a registered sex offender in their town, and perhaps with good reason, but at least we know where that person is. We know if that person's reporting to their probation officer, or if they're seeking the proper treatment, and if they're behaving themselves and conducting themselves in a safe manner for society. It's the unregistered guy you have to worry about, and somebody who goes to this extent to avoid registration, that's somebody I think you have to worry about.
What's concerning to me, what I think is really, really concerning, is the fact that this guy was working as a counselor. How on earth is he a sex offender in California? He moves to Arizona and he's able to work as a counselor in some capacity. He sexually abuses a teenage girl, a 16-year-old girl, and then he has to register as a sex offender. What is going on out west that he would even be able to get a job as a counselor?
Exactly.
Well, it's not just out west. It happens all over the country, Anjanette. Unfortunately, you see people who try to, duck registration. And you have to wonder, is the reason they want to work with young people after being a convicted offender, is that the reason they want to be there, to offend again? And
my thing is, why isn't the sex offender list registry a national thing? Why do you have to re-register from state to state or whatever? Shouldn't that be a national thing? Wouldn't you think it's a national thing where once you're on it, you're on it. Like, I don't know.
And you have to worry about somebody who is not on the registration, somebody who is not seeking court mandated treatment, and in some cases punishment, rehabilitation, if that's possible for some of these guys. And so, yeah, they go right back to where they're tempted to offend again. It's a dangerous and volatile situation. Thank goodness they caught him.
A SWAT team actually took Hollins into custody. Here he is in court recently.
Good morning. Please tell me your name and your date of birth.
Mr. Hollins, 4/13/74.
Mr. Hollins, I've got a few matters to talk with you about. Apparently, you were arrested on two felony offenses: failure to register and annual registration. I am setting a secured appearance bond in the amount of $50,000 on both of those charges. I've set your first hearing in the Pinal County Superior Court for Tuesday, May 21, 2024 at 8:30 in the morning. Now, if you're able to be released on bond prior to that date, you must appear in person for that hearing. If you fail to appear, that court may issue a warrant for your arrest. On the release order are standard conditions of release. If you are released, please review those conditions. If you violate a condition of release, you may be subject to arrest.
I want to take just a really quick break to tell you about something new here at Law and Crime. It's called True Crime Goods. We shop for the true crime addict. Our Law and Crime view. I find this story to just be unbelievable. Benjamin Hollins.
too.
I mean, when you get the call that you have somebody who...
And then he didn't. So faking your death isn't a federal offense? That's not a federal offense? Because he only said 2 felony accounts. One for failing to register and something else. It wasn't about faking your death. That was... Did anybody else notice that?
who tried to fake his death so he didn't have to register as a sex offender. My God, what went through your mind?
It's wild, right? I mean, that's how I let off the story. This is a wild story. You know, he originally, where he faked his death, or at least had somebody help him fake his death, she made that fraudulent police report saying, hey, he jumped off this bridge. That wasn't in my county, so the resources that were expended looking for him was a different county. However, it's wild that he went to that length to try to avoid registering as a sex offender.
Is that woman who filed the false report, is she also facing charges?
You know, we're going to follow up with the agency that received
She
that call
should.
initially. I sure hope they do. You know, because there was a lot of resources that were wasted looking for this guy who wasn't dead. You know, he
That's
tried to get out.
crazy.
He came from California, registered sex offender, comes out to Arizona, doesn't register. Then he ends up re-offending, which I don't know how he was out anyway. And then he gets probation and decides he's not going to register again. And then in October of last year, he faked his death.
The thing that really stuns me about this too is, as you mentioned, he's in California. He's a sex offender there. He moves over to Arizona. He is working as a behavioral counselor, and he sexually abuses a 16-year-old. I mean, my God, like, what is going on? Like, how
How
did
the
he
hell?
even pass a background check to
Right.
get into that type of work?
That's what I want to know.
Shouldn't they have been, like, vetting him? What was going on with that? Do you know?
Exactly.
Absolutely, they should have been vetting him. I don't know whether he used a fake name or not, because he was under a fake identity
He
when
would've-
we actually found him in Mesa. He was living with a family who had children. They didn't even know what he was suspected of doing.
Wow.
But the fact that he had violated a 16-year-old, how is this guy walking the streets and free? This is also a reflection on the poor job that the courts have done holding people accountable for some of the most heinous crimes which are against our children. This is an example of why we can't do that, because this guy tried to, first he failed to register, then he ends up going and wasting resources by faking his death, trying to avoid being held accountable and responsible for his actions. But you know what? We caught him. We're holding him accountable.
Yep.
And he was living with a family with children? Was he just renting a room, or what was going on?
I don't know all the details, but he was living with a family. They had no idea who he was, fake identity. They had children, probably at risk. I
Right.
don't know whether there was any issues. I'm sure that Mesa PD, the agency where he was living, has probably done a little bit of follow-up. But thank goodness Chandler PD, which is one of our neighboring cities up to our county, they did a great job of not believing this death. They actually kept investigating, and they found him living in Mesa with this family.
so-
And we were able to go and take him into custody with our SWAT team.
They knew
Or else
something
he'd
was
probably
up.
still be out there potentially harming or violating somebody else.
He looked pretty stunned from the picture I saw. So was he stunned when the SWAT team scoops him up? I mean, SWAT teams usually aren't super quiet when they go in to arrest somebody. I mean, sometimes, there's the big bullhorn, they announce they're there, and, every once in a while there's a flashbang or something like that. I mean, it just depends on what the circumstances are.
Well, he was definitely stunned. We got a
Of
couple
course,
of pictures of him.
'cause he thought
and
he was
surely
gonna get
He was very stunned.
He
that
thought
we
he was
tracked
gonna
him
get
down.
away.
I think he truly thought he got away with this.
Yeah.
That he was going to be able to change his identity and not be held accountable for his previous actions. But he was wrong.
So what kind of trouble is he in now? And is he still in your jail?
Well, he's going to now have to face the full weight of those charges that he received initially, where he was given probation. I still think that was a terrible, a conviction where they give him probation for this. But he's going to have to face now the full weight of that conviction. He's probably going to face some more charges for failing to register. He's probably going to face more charges for the wasted resources for filing a false police report for his death. There's going to be a myriad of different things we're going to stack on him, and he
Okay.
deserves it because this is a guy who's trying to circumvent the system, and he's putting the rest of us at risk.
Well, it's very scary. It's scary that somebody can just be a sex offender in one state, hop over to another, not register, reoffend, and then kind of be on the run for a little bit. I mean, obviously, he wasn't able to get away with faking his own death, which is going to such extreme measures and extreme lengths to avoid doing this. It's insane to me and mind-boggling. I've heard of faking your own death, but not to avoid registering as a sex offender. So to me, it seems like he's doing this so he can continue doing being a sex offender. I mean, doing these things and getting jobs to get in that position. That's the only reason I can see him not wanting to register.
And I don't think you're wrong. In nearly 2 decades of law enforcement, I've seen a lot of wild things. I've seen people fake their deaths. They want insurance money, or they're trying to get away from disappear. This guy, he clearly did it to avoid registering as a sex offender. He clearly did it so that he can change his identity
And it wasn't
and
worth
not
it.
have to acknowledge that he's a sex offender. But in this situation, he's not dead. We found him. He's going to be held accountable.
Well, good thing for that. Sheriff Mark Lamb, thank you so much.
Yo, he really did the most and still got caught. And he did all of that just to avoid registering. Like they said, people fake their death for other stuff. Which makes sense, trying to get money or something. But this, he did all of that. And now you're facing double the charges. You can't make this stuff up. That's really crazy, y'all. What y'all think?